Welcome back to the Pitch Podcast. My name is Eric Wobanaw, the CEO and president of the Baseball Blue Book, and real excited to have the brothers of Pivot Point Grips with us today, Brett and Kent Becker. Just a real quick kind of a summary of the business. Pivot Point was founded by two brothers with decades of coaching experience at all levels of the game. As former collegiate players, they excelled at breaking down the fundamentals and to improve the way players approach hitting. After years of seeing players challenged with hand alignment on the bat, they created a product to improve a player's bat grip. I love talking to business owners that came out with a really cool idea, and it started with things that they saw and they probably experienced as they were going through their baseball career. So welcome to the program. Excited to have both Brett and Kent Becker with us today. How are you guys today?
Good.
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Awesome. Well, why don't we go ahead and start? Kent, why don't you introduce yourself, your role with the business, and then we'll go to Kent and Brett and Kent. Yes. So Kent, and then we'll start with Kent, and then we'll go to Brett.
Yeah. So like you said, Brett and I are brothers. We're the co-creators of Pivot Point Grips. A little bit about us, we were both fortunate to play college baseball. And for me, out of high school, I went and played at Hutchinson Junior College, where I got to be around some really great coaches and John Berge and Rick Sabbath. But I was fortunate enough to play really well in junior college baseball, where I was able to transfer to Wichita State and got to play for Gene Stevenson and Brent Kimmons and Jim Thomas, one of the better coaching staffs across the country. And so that's kind of where my baseball path went. But after Wichita State, I coached at the Division II level for a few years, coached some summer college baseball teams for 2 or 3 years, and then kind of transitioned out of baseball, but really got more into coaching my kids and more of the youth side, and still kind of follow that as well today, where my kids are a little bit older. But that's a little bit of background about myself.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Brett, how about you?
So yeah, we kind of similar paths. We're, co-creators of this whole thing, and we kind of tackle every project and every thing that needs to be done kind of together, so, and my wife is actually, she's part of our team too. She helps with all the social media and all that good stuff. So that's kind of the 2-man crew and us, and then Taryn and my wife, and we kind of spearhead this and we kind of tackle it. But my baseball background, I played at Cali County and really good junior college here in Kansas. And then I was able to transfer to Fort Hays State, where I had a pretty good little run at a Division II school. And then from there, I got into college coaching. I spent a year at Barton County. Then I coached summer ball and those for the Topeka Golden Giants, which is a college summer team that used to be here in Topeka. Kent was the head coach there for a couple summers, and then one of our buddies, John Tetchwan, took over, and then I was the assistant and did that for 7 years, and then coached at Emporia State, coached back in my alma mater, Fort Hays State. And then from there I spent 5 years at Colby Community College, which was a really good experience on the coaching side of things. And then since 2017, I transitioned into education, so I'm a teacher now. I'm a PE teacher, but I also spend my summers in Falmouth, Massachusetts, coaching the hitters for the Falmouth Commodores in the Cape Cod League. So
awesome.
We're running a business and we're coaching and we're doing all this whole thing. And I also have my own private training business here in Topeka, Kansas, where I train over like 65 kids. So we stay busy through the game of baseball, and we wouldn't want it any other way.
That's great. I'm actually really excited to talk to you guys about this. I've got my set questions, but I've also got a few other ones that are coming up. It's one of the things about baseball, and it's about the gadgets and the devices, and it all has seemed to come out of what works for particular individuals. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's talk about the business, right? You guys have got a great business, a great coaching background in the game for a long time. You know a lot about it. I would imagine you guys would be really good recruiters, just knowing the game, the ins and outs, and the paths that you both went through JUCO. I hear it all the time with coaches, especially with all the changes that are happening. What made you both kind of what was it at the same time? Who was the guy that basically said, hey, we got an idea, let's take this to the next level? How did the actual idea come out, especially with you two kind of going different paths? Did this come from a dad? Did this come from a coach that you guys both had, that you both shared? Talk about that a bit.
Well, yeah, I can. Well, first and foremost, we're brothers, but we're also best friends. So we talk a lot. If you ask our wives, we probably talk too much. But one of the things, I think Brett and I have always had in common is obviously baseball, but specifically around hitting. And we've always have been dialoguing about hitting and things we've seen. And honestly, we probably have learned more about hitting after we played, and just through our experiences to make ourselves better coaches today. And so through the conversation, we've always seen this struggle with how players grip the bat. And I have 3 boys, and so I was always at baseball tournaments every single weekend. Brett's training a lot of guys, a lot of kids. And so we constantly were just seeing such, really more kids that over grip the bat, really get over the top. And so one day Brett had he had a molded golf grip trainer. If you've seen the molded golf grips to help you with your alignment with your hands, he had one in his garage, and we've always, he's just like, why can't we do something like this in baseball? And so we obviously thought more about it. And what we did is Brett's got a couple girls, and they had some Play-Doh, and we actually rolled out Play-Doh thin enough to where we could wrap it around the handle of the bat, and we molded, we kind of compressed our hands into what we felt like was the right grip. And so that initially gave us the idea and the curvatures and the grooves to be like, okay, but we didn't really know what to do from there. It was kind of, okay, we think we got something. So our path then kind of rolled down to, well, who do we talk to next? And me graduating from Wichita State, and Wichita State only being a few hours away from us, we actually reached out to their entrepreneurship program and really helped us kind of take that next step to prototyping, getting us our first prototype, helping us through the patent process and the trademark process. And so that's what really took us off. And, I have one of our original, like this is a silicone mold, but this is one of our first ones we did from the beginning to create kind of what we have in today's, what our actual commercial product is. But that's where it started. Nothing crazy, but, obviously Brett and I, we wanted to find a solution more than anything. And so there wasn't really anything on the market. And that's what continued our path going forward, is just, we wanted to keep finding out more and keep finding a product that actually helped with this, but then it was comfortable in your hands. Like it was people wanted to grab, and it was good for, even if you had a good grip, you would like this grip. And even if you had a bad grip, you would start understanding what is a better grip. And so it's not just for bad grips, it's for every hitter to, reinforce just proper behavior every single swing.
That's great. Now, expand on the value that having a Wichita State entrepreneur program was in your kind of launching this to that next level, because I think a lot of people that might be listening, they're in the same place that you might have been when you had that idea, right? How to take an idea to actually a business. One of those big steps was reaching out to them. Talk about that and the value that really brought, and opening your eyes to really what it was going to take to take this to that next level.
Oh, it was huge. When we look back at it, that was our first step, right? We've never created a product before. We had the idea, but we had to commercialize it, right? We had to actually bring it to life. And, just reaching out to Wichita State was, we didn't know where it was going to take us, but obviously they have a program where they commercialize and help young entrepreneurs like us to get their products off the ground. So I know it was extremely valuable to find that. And I was extremely happy too that I could go back to my alma mater, that, I went there. And again, it's 2 hours away from where we're located in Topeka. And it helped us kind of jumpstart, our product. And they got us to a point where we had to make the next move. But they got us to a point where we could at least see the future ahead of us.
A little bit more on that. When you went to them and they have a program, and again, the reason I bring this up is I did the same thing, right? My dad is actually a professor, and he was at university. They had an entrepreneur and a marketing. It was more of a promotional side, and I leveraged a lot of that. Was it a class? Was it students that helped, or was it a program that you guys basically applied for and then were selected, and then they helped you through that process?
Yeah, we didn't really apply for it. They have a program that just helps with commercialization. And then once we reached out to them and they kind of heard our story, and we kind of, we went back and forth, it was something that they felt like they wanted to take on. Now, they also have relationships with, patent attorneys and those types of things. So that helped us get our first kind of mock-up to be able to start that process as well, because we knew we had something that had some innovation to it, and that would really help players.
That's great. Okay, so take us to the next step, Brett. You've kind of taken that. They've helped you get this thing off the ground, but I think Kent, you said it's now our responsibility to take it to that next level. Yeah. Brett, what was that next level, and what did you guys have to start doing? I mean, these were just an idea, and now all of a sudden it's becoming something.
Well, Wichita State got us to a certain point where then we could go approach different people about how do we actually manufacture this thing. So golf is very, very – the grip is huge in golf. So like golf grips, putting grips, we had just kind of done some research, right? Well, Superstroke is a golf company that makes putting grips. So we're just curious. Kent picks up the phone one day and calls the company, and he gets a hold of the CEO of the company. And from there, we shared with him our files. We did all that, and he looked at it and he thought, wow, this is cool. There's some serious technology behind this, and I could see this being a product that is really cool. And then we spent, what was it, a year and a half, 2 years, basically like dialing in our prototype. And, we had a couple different versions that we were going to go with, and they got us to basically the 5-yard line. And then we found a different kind of manufacturer and went that way. And here we are. So we were finally able to, push the ball across the goal line and find a manufacturer and get us some actual pieces, some actual tool that we could actually feel with and dial in and perfect it.
I love talking to guys that actually have a product, right? There's businesses today are so much consulting and recruiting services. There's not an actual manufacturing element to it, which adds to the complexity, right? You guys have gone through all the patents, all of the copyrights, all of these things, and then finding the proper manufacturer that works and can get those things to the level of quality that you need to be. What was that process like very first time that you guys were doing this? Did you reach out to different people? Kind of talk through that process of getting that. You said it took you to the 5-yard line and then kind of finding your own new manufacturer. How did you do that?
Well, honestly, I think for us, it's all came through relationship building and people we've known. Superstroke was extremely wonderful to work with. Dean Dingman, the owner, CEO, was someone who was super valuable to us. And he got us to a point. Obviously, he's running a big company and he just didn't have much time for us. But when we found our next person, it was through a high school buddy of mine, one of my best friends, that actually lives down in Bentonville, Arkansas. And had a connection with a guy because he deals with Walmart. He's kind of in this world. And it was just kind of a relationship, and he kind of introduced us, and we've been with him ever since. It's been actually a really good relationship. And that's what got us over the goal line. So then we could actually start testing this, getting it on bats, getting player feedback. And honestly, I think the biggest thing for us is once we got through that, the relationship Brett had being in the Cape Cod League is where we did all of our testing, where we did all of our validation with the best college players in the country. And that's where we knew, okay, the feedback was that good that it's like, we got to continue to move this thing forward.
So that in 2022, we had our first 15 grips off of the mold. And they were like different durometers, a 60, a 65, a 70, a 75. And we were trying to perfect it. Well, on my drive from Kansas to the Cape, I stopped in Ohio and I picked up 15 wood bats. And there was a golf shop behind our field. I took them over there. I got them the day before opening day, put the grips on them, rolled them out for BP, early work, BP. Told the guys, listen, this is a product that my brother and I have invented. You can swing it however you want. You break the bat, I don't care. I just want your feedback, and I want you to tell me a real and honest feedback, like, do you like this or not? Well, early work, BP goes by. They are in play by the 6th inning of the first game of the Cape League season that summer in 2022. 5 guys had used it in the first game and you know, I'll never forget this. I'm sitting there going, oh God, like this is the umpires are gonna throw this out. Well, on a wood bat, there's no really rules against it.
Right.
So second hitter, Anthony McKenzie, plays at Oklahoma. He lines a single right back through the middle. And I'm sitting there watching the catcher. I'm coaching third base. I'm not even paying attention to Anthony. I'm watching the catcher pick up the bat. He picks it up, and he's like, the hell's this thing? And then he's like staring at it, and he throws it off. The umpire doesn't see it. We keep playing or whatever. But that is kind of the very beginning. We got the tool. We got the grips. We're validating our all the work that we've done up to this point. So that was, like Kent said, that was able to push us forward and give us more momentum to where we just kept pushing the needle a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more.
So I'm gonna pull us back a bit and get kind of a specific. I'm going to ask a specific question. I know we've kind of covered it, but really, and I'd like an answer from both of you. What was the real inspiration for actually starting a business and the driving force behind your entrepreneurial journey?
For me, it was helping hitters. Like, our true passion is improving hitting. And I've always seen a lot of really good, talented players out there that I look at their grips and I see their grips and just think, God, if someone would help him, right? Like, just watching my kids play, watching other ones, and just being like, you know, you can get away with this now when you're 12, but when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you're going to get exposed. And for us, it's like, we've always, at least for me, my journey of hitting, I was such a, you know, I was a really good high school player, and I went to college and had to make some adjustments and had to go through some learning curves. And then I really took hold of it. But I was one that I just felt like there's a lot of good players out there that don't reach their potential. And for me, that's what this is truly about. And Brett can tell you some stories here in a little bit about, we've seen this in action. We've seen guys, and I'm not talking about little kids. I'm talking about how it's helped really good guys already, like college guys, that has spurred them to go be a professional now and really elevate their career. And so for me, it's giving back. It's really helping hitters.
You know, I love hitting. I love watching people discover things about themselves, especially confidence that they didn't, think they had. But having coached at literally every level of the game other than professional baseball and worked with kids at every stop I've had along the way, I've seen it on every team that I've coached, and I've seen it on kids at every place that I've ever lived that plays baseball. Some of them don't have a clue on how they're supposed to hold the bat. And to me, you got to learn how to swing the bat before you can learn how to hit. And there's a lot of people that kind of misconstrue that a little bit. And that's where kind of the journey will always be for us, is that we're just trying to help kids, and having seen something so small have an effect on kids, like, hey man, like, why do you hold the bat like that? You don't know how many people I've asked that question to, kids, and they're almost a unanimous response. I don't know, I just grab it. That's just how I grab the bat. It's like, well, maybe you should try this, because there are ways that can be detrimental to because people say you can grip the bat however you want. Well, to a certain point,
Right.
there is a wrong way to grip the bat, and so that's kind of where it's all started and where it's all going to continue to go for us, is that it's very simple, but it's something that is very important that we hope people continue to talk about and put emphasis on, because there's a lot of kids across the country. There's a lot of kids in the world. There's a lot of people playing college baseball, professional baseball, that this could help.
That's great. That's great. No, it seems like the simple things, right? It's a small change, but it's pretty dynamic on what can happen. And I appreciate that. That's pretty awesome. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced when starting the business, and how specifically did you overcome them? And we can start with either one of you.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we ran into was, and this is a decision we had to make, was getting over, a grip like this, getting over the knob, right? So our grip comes with a knob. So we had to make the decision when we were originally trying to do this. We were trying to build a grip that could go around an existing bat, right? Well, we built that, but then when we got to manufacturing, it was really expensive to actually do that and make it, be able to actually sell at retail. So we had to make a tough decision to basically do it like a golf grip or do it like a golf club. So you do have to remove the knob of a bat. So Brett mentioned we had some wood bats made. Well, we had wood bats made with no knob. Just think about the handle being just straight down and cut off. Well, then we just put on our golf grips to, slide this on, right? Because the knob's built into the grip. So that was one hurdle we had to change, because we knew it was different, but we also know there's a lot of opportunity when you think about a baseball bat like a golf club. And it's not something they've done in the baseball, softball world, but it's something that we're getting a lot of validation on is we can create a lot of things with this. But in particular, this is one that's just, it's going to put you in a really good spot, right? And we give you some range, right?
Yep.
But if you're that player who wants to keep going, the beauty with ours is it gives you that feedback. Those power grooves, they dig into you. So constantly reminding the hitter, you're just too far. So every piece of this was designed to really help the hitter. And that's what the power grooves do. The power grooves really just, they keep the player in the right spot. But one of the big features in this is our palm pads. Okay. And so we have our palm pads here that just ergonomically fit into the palm of your hand. Okay. But why these are so crucial is two reasons. Is A, it's comfortable. Like it fits in your hand like a hammer would, right? Just fits right in there. But when you feel the palm in your palm, and that's one thing we say, is it gets your wrist in the right spot, right? It's not so much about lining up your knuckles. It's more about your wrist, and your wrist can't be like this and it can't be flat. There's got to be some extension in your wrist. And so that's what it does. And it keeps you in a really good spot in that way.
Now, Well, let me ask a question on that. And I think, Brett, you had made a comment on wood bats. There's really not a lot of limitations or rules, regulations. It seems when you said that they were playing in the game with the grip on, do you see this as a training device or do you see this as part of the game?
Well, right now we're marketing it as a training device because technically different affiliations, it's technically would be illegal because we are altering the bat.
Okay.
If that makes sense. We're taking the knob off. But on all of our training tools and on a wood bat, the wood bat rule just states that the grip can't exceed 18 inches, like the George Brett pine tar rule or whatever, you know? So you can make a wood bat however you want. If you don't want a knob on a wood bat, you don't have to have a knob on a wood bat, you know? So from that standpoint, but we're trying to prove it at the lower levels of the game. Yep. Big leaguers are going to have a hard time saying, I need that, you know? Whereas, you know, and that's kind of to your question that you just asked, like what's been our biggest hurdle? One of the biggest hurdles is getting people to believe and to think that something as so simple as your grip can make a huge difference in your overall performance as a hitter. You know, a lot of people overlook it, and that's kind of one of our hurdles and challenges has been like,
yeah,
it's more important than you think it is.
It's different.
Well, and I think too in baseball, you know, we've always said this in golf. If we went to go get a golf lesson right now from your local pro, the first place they start is your grip. But in baseball, softball, no one talks about it. No one wants to coach the grip. They just say you can kind of do whatever you want. And to Brett's point, what he said earlier is like, to a point, there's a range. We think there's an optimal range because your grip is the steering wheel to your swing. If you want to be consistent with the barrel, you better have a consistent grip. And so it all translate, and that's what we're really bringing attention to because hitting's hard. There's a lot of things in hitting, right? There's a lot of pieces to this, but if you don't grab the bat right, which is the first thing you got to hold on to, well, then everything else downstream is not going to sync up. So that's where it's the first part, right? And so that's why we're so big on that. It's because you can have a 6'2" good-looking kid runs like the wind, but if he's got a grip like this, hook balls and hitting it to the shortstop or the second baseman, it's only going to last for so long. So you're going to have to change. And a lot of it's with these kids is just your grip. It's such a, you know, Brett can tell a story of one of our biggest advocates because honestly, I wouldn't say it saved his career, but man, it put him in a position where he's going to have a really good chance to go be a big league baseball player.
You know, Kent's talking about a kid by the name of Jace Borfin, who I coached in 21 and 22 in the Cape. He's finished up at Arkansas, and now he's with the Blue Jays. But Jace held the bat like this. And his first summer playing for us in Falmouth, the first day of practice, we get the kids there, we take BP. We're just basically watching them. He is just top spinning balls, hooking them in the bullpen. I don't know if he hit a ball to the left of the 4-hole. And he is like, Coach, can we go hit after batting practice? So we go to the cage and we hit. And I just asked him, Jace, why you hold the bat like that? And he's like, I don't know. This is how I hold it. At the time, we had a half bat with our prototype on it. And I put it in his hands, and he's like feeling it, and he's kind of like, this is weird a little bit. Well, I flip him one little ball from the side, and he laces a ball to the back net. And he's kind of looking at me, and he's kind of looking at his grip. And he's like, that felt weird. I said, it felt good, though, didn't it? And he's like, yeah. And so from there, he just kind of kept playing with it. He kept playing, and he kept feeling it, and he kept feeling it. Well, that's like 4 days before opening day. Opening night hits. He hits a home run straight away center field. And from there, he was just kind of like, he kept saying this to me, how can something so simple make such an impact? I'm like, dude, your grip is important. So I start talking to him about my experiences with the grip. and being a golfer, and this is kind of the parallel between golf and baseball for us is like, I lived in Seattle for 8 months, and one of my buddy's dad took me out to play golf one day. Well, one of his friends that was playing with us was this lawyer, never married, single. He would fly from Seattle to Miami to take golf lessons from David Ledbetter. So that just tells you he had way more knowledge than me about the golf grip. And we get to like the 15th hole. He's like, hey, I want to take you to the range and I want to show you some stuff. Sweet, let's go. I'm all ears. He fixes my grip. He's like, we're going to hit all 5 irons. He fixes my grip, and I hit the most pure 5 iron I've ever hit in my life. However, the next about 50 swings that I took, I don't think I got one off the ground. But I kept going back to that thought of I've never hit one that good, and it has to make sense. So I just kept playing with it and kept playing with it and kept playing with it. And finally, I make it my own, and it helps me control my ball flight more now that I play golf, And when I don't play golf, I realize how foreign that golf club can feel in your hand someday. Right. And if it's like that for golfers, it's like that for baseball players. And I know that it's like that for baseball players because I've coached a lot of them and I've talked to some high-level players, and they'll be like, man, I noticed that I start doing stuff that I'm not even aware of with my grip, Yeah. And that's the one feature that I think is awesome about our grip is it's like a checkpoint. When you train with it consistently, you learn that this is where I need to be.
Yep.
And then from there, you can start to make the adjustments that you need to be. But if your grip's locked in, you're going to be a lot better off as it's not being locked in.
I think that's the real important part. What you said, it's a training device that's really training. It's training the repetition, right? It's getting your hands to where it needs to be and understanding that it might feel a bit different. I love the golf analogy. I've always compared the two sports. I mean, it's crazy. You look at everything from the exit velo, all the technology today all came from the golfing world anyway, yep. Right? And it just makes sense. And so to talk about grips obviously makes some sense. I've got a couple more questions. I really appreciate you guys being on here. We've got both the Brett and Kent Becker with Pivot Point Grip on with us today, and just learning a lot about their beginnings of their business. Question. So how do you define success for your business, and what are the goals that you are working towards to achieve this in the future?
I think the success for us right now is kind of the story about Jace is, are we seeing guys get better? Are we seeing the progression? A lot of our growth is happening because of word of mouth, and it's happening because guys like Jace are training with our tools, and they're training with our grips, with our half bats. And, Arkansas trains with them now. Toronto Blue Jays train with them now. Right. So our growth has come from a lot of that. And I think that's how I feel like I define success right now with where we're at. I think for the future is obviously expanding it. We know we're small and we're just starting out. We just finished our first year of selling. And so we're entering year 2, but we're picking up momentum. And a lot of it's just, again, because it's word of mouth, because, there are a lot of baseball, softball tools on the market. I mean, there's a lot. And I think people have a hard time figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And ours seems, the grip is like, oh, it's just the grip. How much could it help? Well, it can help more than you think. And we're proving that right now. And we feel like, the more we get it in hands, the more we're going to see players succeed and start understanding hitting a little bit better. And ultimately, that's our vision. That's been our goal from the beginning, is help hitters. How do we help hitters get into a better spot and be on the barrel more? And at the end of the day, we've always said, if you're on the barrel, it's a lot of fun. And we've both experienced that through our playing days, is being on the barrel and hitting doubles. It's a hell of a lot funner than going back to the dugout and not being on the barrel. So it's all about creating the confidence and having fun playing the game.
And to talk about success, I use the analogy all the time in coaching. It's about progress, not perfection. And you're always constantly chasing consistency and progress, and this might be the most successful story that we could tell over the course of our first year. Okay. There's a kid at Oregon State by the name of Travis Bazzana, who is the most electric player in college baseball. He played for us last summer in Falmouth. And I was fortunate to be around him for, let's call it 50 days. And he has arguably one of the best single game performances in the history of the Cape League against Orleans one night. And this is how it happened. He was a great player. He's a great player. He might have had this night regardless of him using our tools. But this goes to show you the benefit of how important practicing being on the barrel is. So we have these half bats, right? And we created our grip because of us using half bats in our training all the time. Well, if you don't hold the half bat a certain way, you're never going to really find the right kind of contact. So Travis comes up to me. We get to the field one day, and he's like, hey, I want to use that half bat today. He was like, here's my question is we have regular half bats at school, and I'm the best player on our team, and I'm one of the worst ones with the half bat. And I had half bats in our cart that didn't have a grip on it. So I put it in his hands, and this is how he's holding it. He's holding it all kind of jacked up. Well, I'm like, it's kind of hard to hit the ball flush holding it like that. So he goes through he grabs it and takes one round, and he's like, man, that's really good. Takes about 5 rounds. He's like, man, that's the best I've ever swung the bat using a half bat. It's really the first time he's ever used a grip too. And so that night we go play Orleans, and he goes 5 for 5. He hits for the cycle. His 4th hit is his second double off the top of the wall in right center field. He gets to third base, and he gives me one of these, and he goes, Coach, there's something to using those tools that we were using today. And I said, all it promotes is being on the barrel and being flush and being square and making as best contact as you possibly can. Well, at that point, before that night, he was hitting 260. He finished the summer at 375. He wins the batting title in the Cape League. He wins the MVP in the Cape League, and he might be the first pick in the draft in July. And if it can help a kid like that, it can help millions of kids all over the world that enjoy playing baseball. That's awesome. That's to me is success at its finest because it does work. And if it can work for a kid that's very, very, very talented like Travis, it can help.
Now you guys have to start. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's some really good, that's a great story. And very exciting to see what you guys are doing. Now the translation is to margins, and then your bankers are going to start talking to you about, conversions and all the things that aren't fun. Sure. When it comes to the actual business side. Let me ask you this, looking back, what is the advice you would give to yourself when you were just starting out in this entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be any advice. I think it's more of Brett and I just made a decision to just go for it, really. And we made the decision to go for it because we knew how important the grip was, and we knew how it could impact players. And so I think for us, that's what we just ended up doing. We just took the risk because we knew how, and really we knew too, because we've seen all the bad grips. Like there's an epidemic out there of bad grips. And someone like Jace, who is super talented, he was like a top 50 kid out of high school, and he's, 6'2", runs well, really good arm, but he just needed a little tweak. Sometimes it's not the big adjustments. You don't got to break down your whole swing. it's sometimes it's just little stuff, and the grip plays a huge role in your swing. And honestly, I think for me, that would be the advice, is if you have something and you're passionate about it. And that's the thing too, is you gotta have passion with what you're doing. And Brett and I have always had the passion around baseball and always around hitting. And again, and I wasn't kidding when we were talking about, like, we talk a lot. Like, so our text strings and our phone calls, we've been talking hitting. Like, we feel like, I feel lucky to have someone to talk to and trust. And I think Brett would say the same thing, is we're constantly talking about things and, sending videos, and whether it be pro guys or youth guys or JUCO guys, like we're constantly talking about that. And so our ultimate goal has always been, we want to help hitters, right? Pitchers have dominated for a long time, and we want to help hitters because we know there's a lot of good hitters out there that never really reach their potential. And that's really what it's about for us. We want guys to play above their head. And a guy like Travis Bazzana, he's already really special. But for Brett to see it in the flesh and watch how from that day they continue to train with our tools every day, for him to just consistently show up every day and perform. And so we know it translates to the game where it ultimately matters. And that's what we want.
For me, I think, starting this business and doing all this, and it's a lot like being a baseball coach, or it's a lot like being a baseball player. There's a process involved to it, and I'm thankful that my experiences as a player and then my experience as a coach have definitely helped me and Kent go make this a reality, because it's just, we know that there's a process to it. And if we don't know the answer, we find the answer. We'll pick up the phone and we'll call people. And that's how we've kind of got to where we are, is being open-minded and trying to partner with the right people and trying to work with the right people, and knowing that if you stick with the process, that you're probably going to get where you want to go, whether that be the slow process or we know that nothing in baseball is an overnight success. You might have some overnight success, but it takes some resiliency, and it takes some perseverance, and it takes, putting your head down and getting to work. And it's very similar in that regard. And I think that's why we like it so much, because it kind of gets our competitive juices flowing again in a different way.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I always say that the best businessmen and best salesmen are baseball players, because they know the process, they know how to be persistent, and they also know how to fail and continue. So, guys, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and meet you both. Excited to watch your business grow. And we are looking forward to talking again, seeing maybe in the next year or so, getting an update from you guys so we can share that and see where it's going. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric, for having us. Appreciate it.
Okay, don't go anywhere. We just went on and on. That was good.